Hello, I'm Greg Gutfeld with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, and she snowboards on a cufflink. Dana Perino, the 5. Didn't like it, did you? So as Hillary continues her 2017 Woman Scorned tour, serious allegations continue to emerge about an overbearing, creepy Democratic leader who harasses women. But enough about her husband. Boom, boom. Today, it's Harvey Weinstein, who Hillary finally addresses.
I was just sick. I was shocked. I was appalled. It was something that was just intolerable in every way. And, you know, like so many people who've come forward and spoken out, this was a different side of a person who I and many others had known in the past.
Excellent software, but a little late, don't you think? Some are hammering her for waiting so long. But can you blame her? First, Harvey's a friend. I mean, wouldn't you have called him a friend?
Would you have called him a friend?
Yes, I probably would have. And so would so many others. You know, people in Democratic politics for a couple of decades appreciated his help and support.
Yes. He poured money into campaigns that offered him the ideal cover for his deplorable behavior. Every pig gets a pass when you're progressive. By the way, I love how Hillary says she'll donate the money she got from Harvey. That's just recirculating the cash. Why not just give the money back?
Would you give the money back?
Well, there's no one to give it back to. What other people are saying, what my former colleagues are saying, is they're going to donate it to charity. And of course I will do that.
She can't give the money back? Yes, you can. You write the check to Harvey Weinstein and you send it to him. I suspect she knows where to find him. I also suspect he'll need the money soon. Second, it's hard for Hillary to condemn a cad when she stood by one for so long. In a way, she's the personification of Hollywood. It's hard to speak out when you've tolerated such crap for decades. Remember the women who came out about Bill? They were dismissed by you-know-who. Hillary's not much different from those Hollywood A-listers who knew for years and traded sordid details like baseball cards. And that's the point. This was not Harvey's secret. This was Hollywood's secret. He was brazen about it. He never tried to hide it. He just assumed his politics and his power had him covered. And man, he was right. For a while. I have a theory, Jesse, and it might have been your theory, because I think I stole it from you, that if Hillary had been elected president, this story might not have broken because they would have been able to stop the New York Times from running it because he was a friend. Is that a crazy theory?
Well, if it was my theory, it's definitely crazy. It's also right.
Excellent. Self-awareness.
That's right. I think I got that covered. Listen, if she's so sick and appalled by this, why'd she wait a week to say anything? She also jumped the gun on, you said yesterday, the Vegas shooting right away. The Trump birth control order, she spoke out right away. The hurricanes, the Barcelona terror attack. The first day she came out with this. She wasn't shocked. It wasn't a revelation. It was an open secret, and Hillary's all too familiar with open secrets. Also, why she didn't react right away? No reporters asked her. When there's a Republican scandal, every Republican in Congress has reporters outside their door asking. No one even knocked on her door. No one wants her to say anything because it's going to hurt the party. So you have Bill Clinton, you have Anthony Weiner, and now Harvey Weinstein, all of these really inappropriate men in Hillary's orbit. I almost feel sorry for her. And then I was thinking, how did she treat the women that were Bill's mistresses or victims of Bill's alleged sexual misconduct? She orchestrated smear campaigns. There was intimidation. There were settlements. So Hillary likes to say she wants to clean up Wall Street and police and regulate Wall Street. How about she tries to clean up and police Hollywood? Because casting couch culture is criminal in Hollywood. And we can see this. There's this one guy, a dozen victims. There's probably 24 victims. This is running rampant there. If she's a real feminist and a real true icon who stands up for women's rights, you don't just move money around and send this check to Planned Parenthood or to Emily's List. You know what you do? You hold a summit. You set up a hotline. You talk to the victims. You give a major speech in Hollywood, and you try to correct the culture. She's not doing that, though, and she'd earn herself a lot of respect and a lot of credibility in the way that her husband did with the Sister Souljah moment, or, Nixon goes to China. If she went to her own backyard and started actually standing up for women's rights, even I would say, Hillary, you're doing the right thing.
Jesse Waters, uber feminist. Hey, here's some tape.
Never been said before.
I know.
That's disturbing.
The first and last time you hear that.
Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Here's Harvey talking to some reporters. It's pretty interesting.
I'm not doing okay.
You're not?
I'm trying. I got to get help, guys. You know what? We all make mistakes. Second chance, I hope.
You know what I love, Dana?
Wow.
He uses lingo like second chance. It's like I think he is befuddled by all the attention because it had been accepted for so long. It's like, hey, wait a second. I'm Harvey. This is what Harvey did. I used to open the door with my bathrobe open. Don't you know that?
Well, and I find the whole all of a sudden he realizes he needs help.
Yes.
At a sexual addiction clinic to be like, oh really? Like all of a sudden, because he had a ploy in order to say, I'll dedicate all my time to the NRA,
yes,
hoping that would basically get him off this thing.
Thank you.
Help me, Kimberly. Here's what I want to know: are there criminal charges that could be fired?
Yeah,
Toss the ball over here.
The NYPD is investigating 2 cases,
Yes,
correct?
absolutely
And the Scotland
they
Yard is also looking at a case as well. Just thought I'd throw that fact in.
Yes,
there.
they are. One more question.
Has Harvey Weinstein ever contacted you?
You know, I was asked that today.
I think it's a pertinent question. I know his brother hit on a good friend of mine and was very disgusting.
Okay, so you have the story, not me. I'm sorry to hear that. Look, I think that he's trying to engender some public sympathy for himself because guess what? I do think that there are criminal prosecutions that are being looked at very seriously, especially given the number of alleged victims and people that have come forward to say not just horrific harassment, but sexual misconduct, sexual assault, or a sexual battery. So there's a variety of charges. Now, in a case like this, what I would do to try to preserve the of it, if I was a prosecutor, I would impanel a grand jury to listen to the evidence, to hear some witnesses go forward, and in a grand jury, the target of the grand jury, which in this case would be Mr. Weinstein, would be able to proffer evidence on his behalf that is exculpatory. Should he choose to do so, his counsel would be provided the opportunity to do that. So that's what I think some of the things and the discussions, behind the scenes that are going on right now. But it's not, just New York and Scotland Yard. It's also Los Angeles District Attorney's Office as well. So you see there's a number of jurisdictional issues, which I find to be legally fascinating.
Juan, Weinstein was one of the early supporters of Roman Polanski, and I'm sure he's thinking like you had Meryl Streep giving, a standing O to Roman Polanski. He is living in a lucid dream where all this stuff is somehow okay, and now he's waking up and he's realizing why are they turning on me?
Well, this is a really interesting point because we just saw him on video there waving at people as he's getting into that SUV. So there are 2 stories to tell about that. One is the police were called because of some kind of problem at his daughter's home. We know the wife has left him and apparently got into an argument with the daughter. And we don't know the details of it, but apparently the police, as I said, were called to the house.
Something about suicidal thoughts.
Well, we don't know that. We know that could be a spin in terms of trying to garner sympathy for him. But the second part of it that fascinated me, along the lines of what you were saying, is so he then turns to the paparazzi and says, hey, you guys, you know me.
Yes.
I've always been good to you guys.
Right.
As in, Democratic politicians, I've been giving you money. Or, hey, media, I helped you get access to some of these stars at key moments. And so that's the way I thought that's a revealing moment for Harvey Weinstein's mind, that he thinks even with paparazzi who are getting in your face when the world is crumbling on you, that he can say, here's how I deal with you. Here's how I make my appeal. But now let me just come back to your dialogue, right?
Yeah.
Which is to say, you know what? I think that this is about bad behavior by males who like sex generally across all party lines, but especially by politically powerful men or corporate powerful men or men with money. I think that this is the excess that they think they can get away, that it becomes their prerogative to do what they want to do. And if you have women who have ambitions, who are willing to come up to the hotel room, they think they can get away with it, and he got away with it, and it's criminal. But to make fun of Hillary Clinton, I just don't see it. By the way, Jesse, this is her personal, she has a problem with her husband who crossed many lines. And so she has a personal issue. I think lots of women, were like saying, you know what is that famous country music song, Stand By Your Man?
Well, ask Dana.
Dana.
All right. Don't ask me.
Dana's our resident DJ.
Right, but that's a personal issue, and I would stay away from it. Policy issues, gun control, access to birth
politics
control.
is personal among liberals.
I think,
okay, wait, let me get this. Hollywood has spent most of their lives judging our behavior. We are immoral if our climate footprint is too large. If we voted for Trump, we're deplorable. They make politics personal. You saw Eminem, for example, basically say, if you're a fan of Trump, I don't want you listening to my music.
Right.
There are actors who say, if you voted for Trump, I don't want you watching my movies. They hold more hate for Trump than they do for ISIS.
No, wait a second. So what are you? I don't get your point. So what if they say we disagree? They're using their platform as celebrities in America's celebrity soap culture to say what they think.
Right.
And you don't like it because you're libertarian conservative, right?
Yes.
Okay, but I don't see that then says to us or to conservatives, delight in the fact that Harvey Weinstein was a Democratic donor. I'd say, hey,
but they delight. Look what they did to Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney had a binder full of women. They demonized him.
I don't think
a Mormon.
They mocked him for saying he had a binder full of women.
What
do you guys say then about Trump? Should everybody on the Republican side send their money back to Trump?
No. The hypocrisy is, and this is to Hillary Clinton's point, when Bill was having some problems with a lot of different women, Hillary didn't believe any of them.
Correct.
They were all out for this, out for that, and she tried to smear them. But let me finish. But when all these women come forward with Harvey Weinstein, she believes every single one of them, and Harvey's a bad guy. So, either women are to be believed or they're not. And the point is that Hillary changed her story.
You're much younger and better looking than I am, but let me just tell you.
Well, thank you. You don't have to go any further.
But let me just tell you something.
But your earpiece is popped out.
Women, let me just tell you, and I say this with heart feelings. Women oftentimes defend their husbands and try to keep their families together and will go to extremes. That's a personal issue, Jesse.
Did not. She left her husband immediately and did
I don't know
and
what's
listen,
going
every
on.
woman has her own personal decision they're going to have to make. I'm just saying the way Hillary conducted herself changed depending on the politics.
She's under tremendous pressure here because everybody was coming after her and it was being talked about on every show to say, listen, you got to call it out, and she took her time.
Yeah, and not only that, all of the late night comedians that you guys love to mock, they made so much fun of Bill Clinton. Oh, my God.
Nothing about this guy
Nothing about Harvey
Can I just ask Dana this other thing? I'm convinced that we're hearing about the actresses who generally have more power than a lot of women in Hollywood. What about the PAs, the caterers, the gaffers, the hair and makeup people who can't say anything because they will be fired?
Well, and they probably don't have the net worth that would allow you to be able to walk away from a job.
Exactly.
I think that's actually the ongoing legal problems are going to be huge. I think the board members are going to have to answer for a lot of this, because if it was such an open secret and the payoffs were happening 3 years ago and they knew about it, then it's possible that they too would be liable legally.
Yeah. All right. I'm banning open secret because it makes no sense. If it's an open secret, it's not a secret, is it? I don't know.
Lifetime ban?
A lifetime ban. Okay. President Trump taking executive action today to try to eliminate Obamacare. Would it hold up in court? That's next.
Obamacare, after his party's repeated efforts to repeal it have failed, today Mr. Trump signed an executive order aiming to make lower premium insurance plans available to more Americans.
The competition will be staggering. Insurance companies will be fighting to get every single person signed up. And you will be hopefully negotiating, and you'll get such low prices for such great care. It should have been done a long time ago, and it could have been done a long time ago.
The move won some praise from Rand Paul, one of the Senate Republicans who helped block his party's previous efforts to overhaul health care.
Today's a big day. President Trump is doing what I believe is the biggest free market reform of health care in a generation. This reform, if it works and goes as planned, will allow millions of people to get insurance across state lines at an inexpensive price. I'm very glad to be part of this, and I really want to commend the president for having the boldness and the leadership and the foresight to get this done.
All right, Jesse, so these kind of health plans have been talked about for years. It's where, let's say you belong to an association like the Farm Bureau or some sort of, I don't know, association of baseball players or something. And then you can get together, but before you could only buy health insurance in the state where you were. What the president is saying is, why shouldn't people be able to buy across state lines? And so traditional insurance companies are probably going to hate this, but innovative ones or places like Aflac will probably like it.
Aflac. So remember, when Trump was in the campaign, we all know the guy's not a policy wonk when it comes to health care. The one thing he said during the debates, we need the competition around the lines, you do the thing with the finger, this is that. Finally, what choice and competition is, Greg likes to say, it brings prices down. Before Obamacare loaded up these plans with all these mandates, so if you're a healthy, single, 28-year-old male, you have to pay for an expensive plan that has aromatherapy and maternity care. You don't have that anymore. So when consumers go shopping, they like lots of choices and better prices when they're looking for clothes. Why can't we do that with health care? It doesn't make any sense. So I prefer the Congress do it. They blew it, so Trump takes out the pen, and he does it by himself.
Yeah, I guess it is possible, Greg, that you could take what President Trump said today, sign in the executive order, and ask the Congress just to go ahead and pass it and make it law. But even, you had Rand Paul there who didn't want the previous piece, which this could have been a part of.
But he got a free pen. That's
like at the bank.
Sometimes that's all it takes is a free pen and a lollipop. That's what I get at TD Bank. If this order allows, everybody accuses Trump of being kind of an autocrat. He's a tyrant. He just wants to do what he wants to do. But if this order allows for more choice, not less, how is that autocratic? Autocrats narrow choices. This is the opposite of Obamacare in the sense that Obamacare forced you to do something. What this is saying is, no, here's more. If you don't like it, then you are anti-choice. So it's very pro-choice. I think it's really good. Second guy on a motorcycle in a traffic jam decides to weave through the cars. Got past Congress, got in there.
Forget those lines.
Forget those lines.
So, Juan, I know that you are probably not happy with this. And
he loves it. He told me.
Part of the criticism.
No, I don't. And by the way,
I
don't believe that you just said this because Trump acted by fiat.
Exactly like Obama.
Wait a minute. Exactly.
You don't
just
have a leg to stand on.
When you guys were cursing out Obama, here comes Trump. He's where you say, "Oh, this is great. This is great." What do you? Come on.
That's my point. You lost. You can't have that argument.
But the actual policy he's saying is opening up.
No, but the policy. Let me just tell you something. This is not new. This has been tried before. 1988 to 1991. These so-called multiple employment welfare arrangements. And guess what?
They're called MIWAs.
Yes.
You would know it.
Okay. And guess what happened? There was regulatory confusion, fraud, outright fraud.
Sounds like Obamacare.
And enforcement
Website
failure
crashing.
because you know what that big thing Jesse was doing about crossing state lines?
Yeah.
So state regulatory agencies didn't know how to enforce it, and the result was you had about 500,000 people left with over $100 million unpaid claims. So this is what Trump wants to give you. You know what he's doing? He's sabotaging Obamacare. He's trying to ruin it for you, and then he's
already
going to sell it
ruined,
to
Juan.
you. No, it's not ruined. If it was
You can't
ruined,
break something that's already
here's the thing then. So why don't Republicans work with Democrats and come up with something that really serves the American people?
Because they don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. They don't want to come across lines, and so now the president had to go across state lines and do it himself. No, it's really true.
But it's a bad
He's trying
plan.
to. He called Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. Let's see what we can do. Let's try and have some bipartisan approach here to do something. And they were like, no gracias. Okay, so then he was like, I'm going to help.
Republican in the Senate to
There
do
are
this.
some, but guess what? They've been trying and trying. It's like the little engine that could, and trying to push it up the hill, and it's not quite making it. And he's like, okay, I've had enough of this little
Well, this
artistic
doesn't
exercise.
this is actually, now they actually go to write rules. It's not like an immediate fix. But the president did add a paragraph about hospital consolidation, which is what the real driver of cost. And so perhaps we could actually have a conversation about that issue.
Do you know what's fun, though? Let's admit what's really fun.
What's fun?
Crossing state lines. Whenever you do that, don't you get excited?
Yes,
Yep.
I do.
It's like you feel like something
Have you
happened.
ever gone to Four Corners?
You feel like your body's changed.
Have you ever gone to Four Corners?
Yes, I
It'll
have.
blow your
That's a
mind.
club downtown.
No. All right, coming up, North American family released by the Taliban after 5 years of captivity. Details next.
Pakistan has long granted safe haven to terrorists, causing strains in our relations. But it's just done something that's won praise from President Trump. Islamabad has helped secure the release of an American-Canadian family held hostage by a Taliban-linked group for 5 years. Here was the president on the development earlier.
The Pakistani government's cooperation is a sign that it is on America's wish that it do more to provide security in the region. And I want to thank the Pakistani government. I believe they're starting to respect the United States again. It's very important. I think right now, a lot of countries are starting to respect the United States of America once again. We hope to see this type of cooperation and teamwork in helping secure the release of remaining hostages and in our future joint counterterrorism operations.
There are some very strange twists to the story, so let's bring in national security correspondent Jennifer Griffin with more details. Jennifer.
Well, Jesse, the U.S. military had hoped to fly Caitlin Coleman, her husband Josh Boyle, and their 3 children out of Pakistan shortly after their release. U.S. officials tell me that Boyle, a Canadian, would not board the U.S. military flight because he feared being arrested by the U.S. government and perhaps sent to Guantanamo Bay. He was adamant that he wanted to fly to Canada on a private plane instead. Boyle was married previously to the sister of a former prisoner, Omar Khadr, also a Canadian. The release of Coleman, Boyle, and their 3 young children, all born in captivity, took place inside Pakistan. They were released to Pakistani forces based on a tip from the U.S. government. In 2012, Coleman and her husband were hiking outside Kabul in a Taliban stronghold. She was 7 months pregnant at the time. The family was held for 5 years by the Haqqani Network, a Taliban offshoot with ties to Pakistan's intelligence service. The family was last seen in this hostage video in December, pleading for then President Obama to help them. Don't become another Jimmy Carter, Coleman begged. 2 more American hostages are being held hostage by the same Haqqani cell, I'm told. Last year, Navy SEALs attempted to rescue an American professor in eastern Afghanistan and a man from Massachusetts. They are both still being held. U.S. officials tell me this was a negotiated release today, not a military rescue by either the U.S. or Pakistani military. The State Department has been pressuring the Pakistani government to use its influence on the Haqqani group for some time. Jesse?
Thanks, Jennifer. So, Gutfeld, you've been studying this situation carefully all day. A lot of intriguing elements. What surprises you?
At first, it seemed straightforward, but there's just so many weird things going on that he was married to somebody that's related to a Gitmo dude and somehow related to somebody who's pro-Al-Qaeda. It's just so many strange things. I don't want to pass any judgment on the fact that they might be pretending to be hostages in order to get help for the Taliban. I'm not going to say that. What I find interesting is that I'm not going to say that we were withholding military aid to Pakistan, and I just find it so strange that we supply Pakistan with military aid. That's like paying somebody else's child support. I don't understand. Can someone explain that to me?
Yeah.
Go, Dana.
Because if you have to pay the child support of somebody else's child if they have nuclear weapons, and that they are really important to make sure that your own national security is protected. That's crazy. And because you have a situation where Pakistan has been basically the godfather of all of these different types of networks, including the Taliban, who would go in and out of the border. And one thing President
Trump, glad they're back.
I hope that they decide.
But why does he want to go to America? Okay, that's the other thing.
Okay, here's
why doesn't he want to go to America?
I'm not. Maybe we'll find out. But
why did he want to go hiking with his pregnant wife in Pakistan?
Okay, there's a lot of right. So there's some judgment that could be passed on these. However, they were held by the Haqqani Network for 5 years. Who knows how they were treated or their state of mind or what they might know? I mean, nobody has been sent to Gitmo in 9 or 10 years. So nobody's being sent to Gitmo. Hopefully somebody will tell them that. What President Trump did initially upon, I think, in the first 2 months of office, threatened Pakistan that we're going to take this aid away if you don't help us.
Right.
We finally were able to get a tip as to where these people were. What's what's a complication for the others that are being held in Pakistan right now is that Bergdahl trade during the Obama administration has complicated a lot of these diplomatic efforts because we traded. Right. This actually was a figure. We found out where they were. We told Pakistan, turn them over, help us out. Pakistan complied. The Bergdahl trade continues to haunt us.
And thank God we got the family back. The kids, too. I mean, oh my God.
They look pretty good.
Thank goodness.
They look pretty good. Thanks be to
They
God.
were born in captivity.
Well, obviously, that's a very disturbing situation, and that they were held by the Haqqani network. I think it's, admirable what the State Department and President Trump was able to pull off and make sure to bring them home. And now then we will examine it further and see what questions can be answered about the time prior to they were held in captivity. And there are some just questions that are being raised as to whether or not they were radicalized before they were captured. And then, of course, there is the nexus between the husband and his wife's brother, etc., his previous wife's brother. So a lot of things here that need, to be studied. And I assure you, I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of it.
I hope so. And the president and his team deserve a lot of credit, Juan. They've secured the release of very many hostages so far in the administration.
Well, we got 2 more sitting there, so, I mean, let's get to it. We got these 2 professors who were at the American University in Kabul. I think it's Kevin King and Tim Weeks, and they've been sitting there, and we don't have anything yet. So let's hope this is a precursor to their release, because, you don't want anybody in that situation. And the idea that this family was held there and potentially abused by the captors, and we're talking about whether they were brainwashed or but physically abused. And these poor kids, who would want to have children born, much less and raised in that situation? The mother said it was a Kafkaesque nightmare, and I think that's the best way to put it. But I think it's just outrageous. And to me, the Pakistanis, I don't get them at all, because this is just the tip of the iceberg with the Pakistanis. Tolerating terrorists, especially Muslim extremists, and then turning their backs on the United States and saying, oh, well, we're just trying to, hold it together over here. And
that's why I don't get the military. I don't know why we're giving them money.
No, but Dana explained, I thought, in detail. But the large point that Dana said was they have nukes, and we want to make sure that we have some controls in place, because, as you know, they've been sending information on how to create your own new places.
Well, thank God the nightmare is finally over for the family. All right, John Kelly made a surprise appearance at today's press briefing. Dead when we return.
President Trump going after the media again, this time trashing NBC News for its report suggesting he called for a bigger U.S. nuclear arsenal. The president tweeting, quote, "With all the fake news coming out of NBC and the networks, at what point is it appropriate to challenge their license? Bad for the country," end quote. Meanwhile, his own chief of staff coming out today to address reports about him in the media. Here's John Kelly.
I would just offer to you that although I read it all the time, pretty consistently, I'm not quitting today. I don't believe, and I just talked to the president, I don't think I'm being fired today. And I am not so frustrated in this job that I'm thinking of leaving. My only frustration, with all due respect to everyone in the room, is when I come to work in the morning and read about things I allegedly said, or things that Mr. Trump allegedly said, or people who were going to be fired or whatever, and it's just not true.
So this is part of a big story, because as the president's upset not only about reports about an increase in the nuclear arsenal, which he said not true, and of course that's the comment that led then Rex Tillerson allegedly to call him a moron, but then secondly about the chaos at the White House, specifically having to do with Kelly and the National Security Advisor Mattis being very unhappy with him, potentially even a suicide pact that if one of them gets fired, they're all leaving. And of course, then we heard from Senator Tom Coburn saying it's daycare over there, adult daycare.
Bob Corker, not Tom
Bob
Coburn.
Corker. I'm sorry, Bob
That's
Corker.
That's a throwback.
Yeah, I mean,
Tom Coburn.
He's like, don't drag me into this.
So you have a situation here, Kimberly, where the president then goes on in terms of anger at the American press to say, quote, "frankly disgusting the press is able to write whatever they want." That really got the attention of the American media.
Obviously, right, because they don't want to be called out for it, and the fact that they wrote these stories where it says, your sources aren't correct, et cetera. But what I think was good here is that General Kelly went and kind of took the podium and addressed the statements, the rumors, the sources, etc., head on. Now, we don't know 100% what's going on, obviously, behind the scenes there and whether or not there's some discord and discontent, but it seems as if the ship has been righted and it's stable, at least for the time being. I take him for his word that he's not going to resign, but you know, today, exactly.
Today, he said today.
You know, tomorrow's a whole new day, but, you know, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think it's definitely, you know, tensions are stressful over there, right?
Yeah. Jesse, Senator Ben Sass, the senator from Nebraska, said in a tweet that the president has an oath to uphold the Constitution. Here he's talking about First Amendment press rights. Then you get Jeb Bush retweeting Ben Sass. So there's the Republicans who seem to be censuring the president.
Low energy Jeb took to Twitter. Good for him. I haven't heard from him in a while. Jeb always attacks Trump. I mean, where was he going after Hillary during the book tour? Could have used some tweets on that, but that's besides the point. The point is that Trump is baiting the media, and every time he's not going to revoke licenses. He's just media bashing. The country loves it when the media gets bashed, and then the media has to report on. Cheer on Trump, or you see a bunch of pundits feeling sorry for themselves and whining about being attacked, and then you just go buy gum or a newspaper. It's a lose-lose every time for the media. The ratings go down. People don't want to hear pundits whine on television. They're not the story. The only thing that Trump wants them to do is not keep pushing fake news. He's very sensitive. We all know that. Yes, he brings a gun to a knife fight. We all know that. He's going to protect his brand. He's going to respond after every slight. But you know what? The media is the same way. They're just as sensitive. They're hypersensitive, and they want to put themselves in the middle of the story. I don't know who enjoys attacking each other more, Trump or the media. I just don't see how this gets any better.
But, you know, Dana, I think there's lots of fear that it's an authoritarian move, reminding people of what Nixon did with the Washington Post during the Watergate investigation. And on top of that, you have a situation where even like one of our colleagues, Brett Baer, says, you know, this is just way over the top.
Well, I thought General Kelly had a good way of pushing back on the media today, where I trust that all of you do have sources. I'm just telling you that you probably have low-level sources, and you need to get some better sources.
Yeah.
He wasn't saying that they're making stuff up, because I don't think that they are. Somebody is telling them this. And on the thing about the NBC as a network doesn't even have a license, so that doesn't make sense.
Right.
You
can go after their locally owned affiliates.
You could do locally owned, but who's going to do that after, like, how? That's not.
That's what Richard Nixon did to Catherine Graham.
I honestly think also in terms of the numbers, it's actually the ratings for everybody are up.
Right.
Newspaper sales are up, and actually trust in the media is actually up.
Yes.
President Trump's approval ratings are going up. So it is true that you might not get it. Nobody's really actually getting anything out of this unless everybody's getting a little bit of something.
All right. So Greg,
I'm just saying, when you turn on, you see CNN whining about getting attacked by the president.
Yeah, I don't watch
that segment's on every single day.
Yeah, I don't watch it.
Come on.
So, Greg, I saved this for you. Joe Scarborough, Morning Joe, says this reminds him of Trump. Here I'm quoting, channeling Chairman Mao and Joseph Stalin.
Yeah, I guess he moved on from Hitler. What about Ho Chi Minh, Morning Joe? Morning Ho Chi Minh. Speaking of which, here you have people claiming that Trump is trying to stop speech. Last night, the left literally shutting down speech, going into another Charles Murray speech and shutting it down. So they're actually shutting it down.
Because he said girls and boys could be different.
Yes, but you, I want to. I know I quote Scott Adams a lot, but I've been talking a lot about the difference between words and deeds. The press is talking about words, but Scott Adams points out that they aren't doing stories on the consequences of Trump's actions because there haven't been any consequences of Trump's actions. When he stopped TPP, no one's noticed it. When he rolled back the Paris Accords, no one's noticed it. When he's dealing with China or North Korea or ISIS, bad things aren't happening, so you can't do those articles. You can't do the articles on the consequences of Trump's actions. So instead, you have to engage in these kind of little conflicts because they can't address his effectiveness. That's interesting.
Well, you think the press made this up, that Trump didn't tweet this?
But I think they love it.
Okay, all right.
That's all they got.
I don't know.
They're clinging to it.
They're clinging to it. Well, I think that Trump is up to something here. In a historic shift,
success.
The Boy Scouts will soon admit young ladies, the Girl Scouts, aren't happy about it. Hear why next.
You can't touch this.
Welcome back. And in a major shift, parts of America will now be fully inclusive for girls for the first time in its nearly 100-year history. history. This decision would let girls into the Cub Scouts and eventually allow them to earn the Eagle Scout ranking. Well, not everyone is happy about this, specifically the Girl Scouts of America, slamming the decision in a statement, quote, "The Boy Scouts house is on fire." Instead of addressing systemic issues of continuing sexual assault, financial mismanagement, and deficient programming, BSA senior management wants to add an accelerant to the house fire by recruiting girls. And we thought they were talking about Weinstein for a second there. Okay, so what do you make of this, Greg? Because you're very into children's issues.
I am. As you know, they have not gone far enough. Two examples. Forget the gender restrictions. What about age restrictions? I want to be a Girl Scout. I want to be a brownie. I look great in green. I like to sell cookies. Seriously,
You like to eat
if you can
cookies?
eliminate the gender differences, you can eliminate age differences. Don't be ageist. If I want to be in a group with children, that should be my prerogative. And I don't think we've gone far enough. I saw outtakes today of the
That was
Sports
pretty creepy.
Illustrated swimsuit issue. I saw it today with Kate Upton slipping on rocks. I'm looking at the swimsuit issue. Not one dude in it. Not one dude. That is seriously, it's a sexist enterprise. We should integrate every single thing.
Okay, so would you like to volunteer to try out for Sports Illustrated?
No, thank you.
No one deserves to see
Terrified?
that.
He just,
Terrified
wants
what? Go
to, he
ahead.
just wants to join the Boy Scouts.
Dana.
No, Girl Scouts.
Well, I
He
guess
meets the height requirement. Go ahead.
I understand that there are many fewer girls are going into the Scouts. Okay, so they're trying to figure out how to do this. And also, Cub Scouts, that leads to Boy Scouts, and especially the Eagle Scout designation, you learn a lot. You grow, you mature, and actually those people end up becoming really good leaders. Many of them join the military, run for Congress, run big companies, are big in the world. So I could see why you might want to have something for girls that would give you that same sort of thing. I don't think it has to be the Boy Scouts.
Okay.
I just want them to leave the Girl Scout cookies alone. Don't mess with the recipe. Are the boys going to be making the cookies now? I'm a little concerned about that. The Samoas, the Thin Mints, as long as they're still the same, I'm okay with it.
All right, that was compelling. Go ahead.
Wow, that statement from the Girl Scouts. Wow, talk about setting the house on fire.
Pretty brutal, right? Wow.
They're furious at the Boy Scouts, and they say that the Boy Scouts are losing numbers, but the Boy Scouts say, and I think this is more the record, that the Girl Scouts have seen declining numbers. I must say that, in a sense, it feels as if this is an antiquated institution on both parts, that you have people who say, you know what, my kids can find these very activities on their own.
Oh, that's terrible.
Dana
This is a tradition.
Dana and I encourage all the young women out there to go to the Campfire Girls because we were both bluebirds.
Aw.
Probably at the same time.
I want to be a
Wonderful
bluebird.
group. No, I don't think so. One more thing is up next.
One more thing, Jesse.
We're debuting a new feature on the show. Mom texts, you know, my mom is a liberal Democrat and sometimes texts me during the show. So we're going to be reading some of these texts now. Here we go. I cannot and will not identify myself as the mother of Trump's wingman. Change it up. You are on Fantasy Island and don't make statements about what I, as a Democrat, want. Illegal immigration? Brutal and mean and not American and ludicrous. And where is your voice, Jesse? Sad. Words matter. And what are you talking about?
So basically,
We love you,
Every night.
Mom.
There she is.
That is amazing.
She's like,
by the
what
way,
happened
those are
here?
real.
Those are real.
Those are real.
Those are real. They're too
That is
real.
not fake
Amazing.
news text.
Yeah,
Amazing.
exactly. Great new feature.
But you left out the ones where she compliments Dana all the time.
Yeah, we'll leave those next time.
I have nothing quite as good, although that's adorable. All right, we got some video. 2 black bears in a family's yard in Falls City, Washington. Roll it. Isn't this adorable? They're playing with a little soccer ball. It's so adorable to do things that humans do until you picture the ball as a human being. There is nothing adorable about black bears. They will rip you to shreds. So stop thinking they're cute because they're playing with a ball. Be your severed head. All right, Juan.
Oh, well, gee, thanks.
That's kind of
So
intense.
on Tuesday, I gave a speech on the life of Justice Thurgood Marshall at the Hamilton campus of Miami University of Ohio. Ohio. Next year will be 20 years since my biography of Justice Marshall was published. There's now a resurgence of interest in the first African American on the Supreme Court. This month marks the 50th anniversary of his taking the bench. A movie's coming out about his life. Time magazine has just released a special edition. Not a month goes by in 20 years that I don't get questions about Justice Marshall from historians and students. They want to know about Brown v. Board of Education, how he set the framework for race relations in America today.
Excellent. KG.
All right, thank you so much. So I wanted to share this with somebody that I met who I really admire, who is a former Marine and a Vietnam War veteran. His name is Chuck Mansfield, and he's incredibly clever and a great writer. His book is called Bits and Pieces, Stories to Soothe the Soul and to Raise the Hackles. And it really is an opinionated piece about American culture and about politics in a very kind of left-wing, politically correct world. And the first entry part, Greg says, no kids, no money, and a Chevy. It kind of sounds like you.
Ah, it does. Dana.
Well, my one more thing fell through because I'm waiting for a picture, so I'm going to bring it to you tomorrow. But I'm going to promote the 2 p.m. show or the Daily Briefing. Guess who I have on? Not all at once, but I will have Kimberly Guilfoyle, Ian Bremmer, and Ed Gillespie, who is running for governor of Virginia. So that'll be tomorrow.
That's an all-star lineup.
Unbelievable.
I love both of them. I love Ed and I love Ian.
Staggering, says President Trump. Staggering.
Staggering. All right, I always stagger. Set your DVRs, never miss an episode of The Five. Something called Special Report. Never heard of it. It's up next.